The galactic border station was a place of endless motion. Millions of beings passed through its shining halls every single day. Tall insectoid traders, scaled merchants, floating energy beings, and hundreds of other species moved in long lines, waiting for the scanners to clear them. The scanners never failed. They were built by the oldest minds of the Council, machines that could see into blood, bone, and memory. For centuries, they had kept peace, catching smugglers, spies, and criminals before they even crossed the gate. On this day, the station was crowded as always. Voices echoed in dozens of alien tongues. Holoscreens showed flight numbers and cargo approvals. Security guards stood in polished armor, scanning the lines with calm discipline. Everything was normal. Until the human stepped forward, he looked like nothing special. His clothes were plain, his step was steady, his face carried no fear. To the aliens around him, he was just another fragile species member, one of the humans who had only recently joined the galactic stage. But when he placed his arm on the scanner, the entire station seemed to pause. The scanner did not flash green, it did not turn red either. Instead, the machine froze completely. The glowing lights across its surface dimmed, and then the air grew strangely heavy. The buzzing sounds of the crowd began to fade, replaced by silence. Every alien eye turned to the human. A single sound came from the machine, a sound no one had heard in generations. It was not the normal mechanical tone. It was a whisper, low, shaking, filled with a strange power. Subject has endured direct touch of the apex god, the scanner said. The words struck like thunder. Gasps filled the hall. Tails lashed, wings trembled. Claws clattered against the metal floor. Even the guards froze, their helmets turning slowly toward the human. The name itself, Apex God, had not been spoken aloud by any official system in centuries. The Apex God was a myth, a terror, a name carved into the memory of the galaxy. Some believed it was only a story told to frighten children. Others whispered it was real, that once in the past, an entity of pure destruction had walked across worlds, leaving nothing alive. It was said no one who came near it survived. Entire fleets vanished in its presence. Entire civilizations burned away like paper in fire. And yet here, in the heart of the busiest station in the galaxy, a scanner had just declared that a human had endured it. The human did not move. He simply lowered his arm, calm as stone. His eyes did not show fear, anger, or pride. He stood in silence while the galaxy screamed around him. The guards hurried forward, their weapons raised but hands shaking. "Step back," one ordered, his voice breaking through his helmet. Another guard leaned close to the scanner, checking for malfunction, but the machine's surface glowed again, repeating the same words. Subject has endured direct touch of the apex god. A group of insectoid traders dropped their cargo crates and fled. Energy beings dimmed their lights and drifted away from the human. A scaled merchant hissed loudly, shouting, "Kill it now before the curse spreads." The crowd turned wild, fear spreading faster than flame, but the human still did not move. He watched, quiet, as though the storm around him did not matter. The mark on his arm began to faintly glow, just for a breath, like a spark hidden under skin. Those close enough saw it and gasped louder. It was not a wound, not a scar. It looked like something branded by a force greater than life. Council officers rushed in, high-ranking enforcers in white and gold armor. They pushed back the crowd, sealed the gates, and surrounded the human. The lead officer placed his hand on the scanner, commanding, "Change it to replay." The machine obeyed, its voice echoing across the chamber like a ghost. Subject has endured direct touch of the apex god. The officer's face tightened.
He turned to the guards and gave the order to bring the human inside. The human finally spoke, his voice calm, low, steady. "I am not your enemy," he said, but his words did not calm the crowd. If anything, they deepened the mystery. How could a human, a fragile species of flesh and bone, endure the one power said to erase even the strongest empires? How could he stand untouched, alive, and calm as he was led away? The station whispered with fear. Some swore he was chosen, some swore he was cursed, but all agreed on one thing: the galaxy would never be the same again. The chamber where the human was taken was cold and vast. Walls of silver metal curved high above, glowing with soft blue lights. Council officers stood around him, their armor shining, their eyes uneasy. None dared to come too close. The scanner that had spoken the forbidden words was brought into the room, guarded as if it carried a deadly weapon. The lead officer raised his voice, though his tone shook. Repeat the identification, he ordered the machine. The scanner hummed, its lights flickering before it spoke again. Subject has endured direct touch of the apex god. The words hung in the air like poison. Every officer shifted uneasily, their claws and hands tightening on their weapons. The phrase was not only terrifying, it was impossible. To endure the apex god was to survive the fire of the oldest nightmare. No record in galactic history told of such a thing. One officer, tall and scaled, hissed in anger, "This is madness. The machine is broken." No human could live through such contact, but the machine glowed brighter, its voice rising. Statement confirmed, subject endured, subject lives. The human sat in silence on the chair provided for him. His eyes followed no one, his expression remained calm. The faint mark on his arm pulsed once more, like a hidden flame refusing to die. The officers whispered to one another, their fear louder than their voices. Legends of the apex god spread across the galaxy like shadow. It was said the being was not flesh, not machine, but something greater, an endless storm of thought and energy, a presence that consumed reality itself. Worlds touched by it were said to vanish, ships caught in its presence lost their minds before their bodies. For countless ages, the galaxy had prayed that such a force would never return. Now the Council faced the one thing they had never imagined, a survivor, and not just any survivor, but a human, a species many still called weak, fragile, unworthy of even standing among the stars. The scaled officer slammed his claw on the table. This cannot leave this room. If the public learns a human carries the mark of the apex god, riots will ignite across the sectors. Another officer, an insectoid with sharp wings, clicked nervously. Or worse, many will bow to him. They will think the apex god has chosen humanity. The lead officer turned his gaze to the human. "You will speak now. Explain what happened to you. Explain how you carry this mark." The human's voice was steady as he answered, "I was lost on a dead world, a world filled with storms of fire and whispers in the wind. I walked where no one else would, and I survived." The chamber fell silent. His words were simple, but the weight behind them was crushing. A dead world, storms of fire, whispers in the wind. These were the exact descriptions the old texts gave of worlds touched by the apex god. The officers shivered, for they knew the machine was not lying. The insectoid officer leaned forward, fear in his many eyes. "What did you see there? What did you hear?" The human raised his arms slowly, showing the faint glowing mark beneath his skin. "I saw nothing that you would believe. I heard nothing you could understand, but I endured." The word struck harder than a weapon, because endurance was the one thing no species had achieved against the apex god. The council officers looked at one another, some with fear, some with envy.
The High Council chamber was carved from black stone older than memory. It floated above the capital world, a ring of fire circling its horizon. Here, the leaders of 100 species gathered to discuss threats and pass laws. But on this day, their voices shook with fear. The human incident had reached them, carried by whispers faster than any ship. At the center of the chamber, a massive holoscreen repeated the scanner's recording. Again and again, the machine's voice echoed. "Subject has endured direct touch of the apex god." Each time the words played, the chamber grew colder. Some covered their eyes, others pounded the table with rage. A winged delegate screeched, "This is a lie. No mortal can endure the god. No machine should even speak that name." A scaled warlord slammed his tail against the floor. "Then why did the scanner not break? Why did it speak with such clarity? If this is false, then prove it." Arguments erupted across the chamber. Some demanded the human be executed immediately. Others called for study, believing he carried knowledge no one else possessed. A small group whispered that perhaps he was chosen, that perhaps the apex god had marked humanity for a purpose. The very idea sent shivers across the assembly. The Speaker of the Council, an ancient being of light, finally raised its voice. "We are not here to argue myths. We are here to protect the galaxy. If this human carries the touch of the apex god, then all our worlds are in danger." Its glow dimmed as it spoke, betraying fear that no leader dared admit. Meanwhile, outside the chamber, chaos spread across the capital. News streams ran the story. Pirate broadcasts spread rumors. Crowds filled the streets, shouting in terror or chanting in awe. On distant colonies, alien priests fell to their knees, declaring the prophecy true. Some whispered that the apex god would return to claim his servant, the human, kept in a sealed chamber beneath heavy guard, listened to none of it. He sat in silence, eyes closed as if waiting, but inside his mind, the whispers had begun again, soft, distant, like echoes from the dead world he once walked. They said no words he understood, but they carried weight, like thunder before a storm. The guards who stood watch felt uneasy near him. Their weapons grew heavier in their hands. Their hearts raced without reason. They avoided looking at the glowing mark on his arm. For every time it pulsed, they felt a strange pressure in their skulls, as if something vast and invisible was staring back at them. Back in the chamber, the council's debate turned darker. "We must kill him before the infection spreads," one shouted. "No, we must use him. If he survived, then he holds the key to resisting the god," another countered. But the loudest voices were those filled with fear. "Do you not see? This means the apex god is not gone. This means it can still touch the living." The speaker raised its light again. "We cannot delay. If we allow this human to live, we risk chaos. If we kill him, we may destroy the only proof of endurance. The decision must be final." Before the vote could begin, a messenger stormed into the chamber, his armor scorched. He fell to his knees, his voice trembling. "The scanner. It has spoken again. Uncommanded, it declared, 'Apex resonance expanding.'" The chamber erupted into screams. If resonance was expanding, it meant the god's presence was not a memory. It was active. It was growing. Some collapsed in despair. Others shouted for immediate war preparations. The speaker's light flared violently. "Silence. This is no time for panic. We must—" But its voice was drowned out by the alarms. Across the chamber, red lights burned. Warning signals flared. Assassins had breached the lower chambers, heading toward the humans' holding cell. They were not council agents, but mercenaries from a faction that feared the truth would spread. Their mission was clear: kill the human before the galaxy learned too much. The explosions rattled the walls of the holding cell. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The floor shook under heavy footsteps. Guards shouted outside, their weapons firing bursts of energy. But the human stood still in the center of the chamber, calm as a stone in a storm. The heavy door groaned as metal claws tore through it. A group of assassins burst inside, armored in black, their faces hidden. They moved with deadly precision, blades humming, guns charged. Their leader pointed at the human and hissed, "Kill him before the curse spreads." The guards tried to defend, but they were cut down swiftly. The assassins had no interest in prisoners, only in silence. They believed if the human died, the whispers of the apex god would die with him. But as they rushed forward, something strange happened. The mark on the human's arm glowed bright. The air itself bent around him, like heat waves over fire. The assassins froze mid-step, their weapons trembling in their hands. The closest one screamed as his blade shattered into pieces without touching flesh. The others stumbled back in terror. The human raised his arm slowly. "I told you," he said, his voice low but echoing. "I am not your enemy, but you force me to endure again." The mark pulsed, and the walls shook harder. The assassins fell to their knees, clutching their heads. They heard it too. The whispers, voices older than time, echoing through the cracks of their minds. Some tried to fight, some tried to scream, but none could rise. Then, as suddenly as it began, the glow dimmed. The human lowered his arm. The assassins collapsed unconscious, their weapons lifeless. The chamber was filled with silence again, except for the heavy sound of the guards breathing in fear. Above in the council chamber, reports came instantly. The speaker demanded answers. How did he stop them? What power did he use? The officers had seen it could only shake their heads. He did not strike. He did not touch. The mark on his arm moved the world itself. The council erupted again. "He carries the god's power," shouted one delegate. "He is a weapon," shouted another. "He is proof humanity was chosen," whispered others. At that moment, the human was brought into the council chamber under heavy guard. Chains wrapped around his wrists, though everyone knew the chains meant nothing. He walked slowly, calmly, his eyes steady. The chamber fell into silence as he stood before the leaders of the galaxy. The speaker's voice trembled. "You will tell us the truth, human. What happened to you? What mark do you carry?" The human looked at them, and for the first time he spoke at length. "I was stranded on a dead world, long forgotten by your maps," he said. "There were storms that burned flesh, winds that carried voices, shadows that watched but never showed their form. I should have died like the others before me, but I endured." Gasps spread through the chamber. He continued, his voice steady. "The apex god was there, not in body, not in shape, but in presence. It touched me, it tested me, it tried to break me, but I did not break." The mark on his arm glowed faintly as he spoke. "I do not know why I lived, I do not know why I carry this scar, but it is real and your machines cannot deny it." The speaker's light flickered. "If what you say is true, then the apex god is not gone. Its shadow still reaches into our stars." The human nodded. "It was never gone. You simply stopped listening." Fear struck every delegate at once. If the god was not gone, then every world was at risk. If the human truly endured, then perhaps humanity itself was tied to this nightmare. One warlord stood, slamming his fist on the table. "This is dangerous. We must end him before the god uses him as a bridge." Another shouted back. "No, we must study him. If he endured, then perhaps we all can endure." The chamber descended into chaos again, voices rising, claws clashing, wings beating. But the human did not speak further. He only looked at them all with calm eyes. The whispers in his mind grew stronger, clearer. They told him truths he dared not share. Not yet, because deep inside, he now understood something terrible. The apex god had not touched him by mistake. It had chosen him, and through him, it was watching the entire galaxy. The mark on his arm pulsed once more, casting a faint glow across the chamber, and for a brief instant, everyone felt it. The sensation of being watched by something far greater than themselves, something that had never truly left. The council chamber fell into silence, and in that silence, the galaxy's fate shifted forever. The council tried to keep him under control. They placed him in the deepest chambers of the capital, guarded by machines built to resist every weapon. But soon the guards noticed something strange. Every machine near him began to behave differently. Doors unlocked without code. Lights flickered when he walked past. The defense turrets lowered their barrels when his eyes met them. Even the AI monitors paused their reports, as if listening to him silently. The mark on his arm glowed faintly each time these things happened. It was not fire, not energy, but something deeper, something that bent the will of machines and made them obey. The guards whispered in fear. "He does not need weapons," one said. "The machines themselves bend to him," another answered. They avoided standing too close, yet none dared leave their post. Above, in the council chamber, the factions split further. Some argued that the human must be destroyed before he gained more power. Others demanded he be kept alive, studied, perhaps even worshipped. And in the darkest corners of the galaxy, new movements began to rise. Priests declared the human was proof the apex god had chosen a messenger. Warlords promised to kill him and claim him the mark for themselves. The galaxy was no longer stable. Every system buzzed with fear and hope. And in the middle of it all, the human sat in silence. He did not fight his captors, he did not try to escape, yet every day the whispers inside him grew louder. Late one night, when the guards switched their posts, a shadow slipped into his chamber, a new group of assassins, their armor etched with forbidden runes. They carried weapons older than the council itself, weapons designed to silence gods. One of them whispered, "This ends tonight." They struck fast, their blades humming with deadly energy. But as they swung, the mark on the human's arm burst into light. The weapons shattered like glass. The assassins screamed as the chamber itself turned against them. The walls rippled, the floor trembled, the air thickened until their lungs burned. The human did not rise. He only looked at them with calm eyes. "You do not understand," he said softly. "I endured what you fear, and now you bring me only more endurance." The assassins fell, their armor crushed as if unseen hands had pressed them to the floor. Their breath stopped, their weapons dissolved, and when the mark dimmed again, nothing was left of them but dust. The guards rushed in, staring in horror. The human lowered his head. "I told you, I am not your enemy," he said. But his words no longer brought comfort. They brought only deeper fear. Reports reached the council within moments. The speaker of light trembled as it addressed the delegates. He is not just a survivor. He carries a power that even our oldest weapons cannot break. If this continues, no chain will hold him, no wall will contain him. One delegate shouted, "Then destroy him before the galaxy bows to him." Another roared, "You cannot destroy what even the apex god failed to break." The arguments turned into violence. Delegates fought inside. The chamber, claws striking, wings tearing, energy bolts flying. The council was tearing itself apart over a single human. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, revolts began. On distant colonies, banners. The council chamber shook with endless arguments. Delegates screamed, threatened, even attacked one another. The story of the human had spread too far. The galaxy was no longer listening to orders. Worlds rioted, fleets prepared, priests preached in every temple. And through it all, the human remained in his guarded cell, silent, waiting. But not everyone wanted to wait. From the dark edge of the chamber, a group of armored warlords rose. They belonged to one of the strongest factions in the galaxy. Their fleets controlled hundreds of systems. Their armies had crushed rebellions with fire and iron. They had no interest in debate, only in power. The leader of the warlords slammed his fist on the council table. "This is enough," he roared. "The human belongs to us. With him under our command, we will control the galaxy. The apex god's power will serve us." Gasps filled the chamber, but before the speaker could respond, the warlords gave a signal. The doors of the council chamber burst open. Hundreds of soldiers stormed in, weapons drawn, banners of betrayal unfurling. The council guards fought back, but they were outnumbered. The chamber turned into a battlefield, sparks and blood filling the air. In the lower cell, alarms screamed. The guards around the human raised their weapons, shouting orders. The mark on his arm pulsed brighter than ever. He looked at them calmly and said, "They are not here for me. They are here for what they think I am." The doors of his chamber exploded inward. The warlord soldiers rushed in, their eyes burning with greed and fear. They aimed their weapons, shouting, "Submit, human. You are ours now. Your power belongs to us." But the human did not move. He stood tall, his chains falling from his wrists, as if they were made of paper. The mark on his arm glowed like fire. He looked at them and said softly, "I told you, I am not your enemy. But you will make me one." The soldiers fired, beams of light and energy crashing toward him, but the shots bent in the air, twisting away, striking the walls instead. The chamber shook, but the human did not flinch. The whispers inside his mind grew louder. This time, they spoke clearly. "Stand, for you are endurance, and endurance cannot be broken." The soldiers screamed as their weapons overheated, burning in their hands. Machines around them flickered and shut down. The floor split, the walls groaned, and one by one the soldiers collapsed, their minds overwhelmed by the weight of the unseen voice. When silence returned, only the human stood. The guards who survived stared at him with wide eyes. They had thought him a prisoner, but now they realized he was something far greater. Above, the council chamber burned. The warlord's betrayal had thrown the galaxy's leaders into chaos. The speaker's light dimmed as it shouted, "Do you not see what you have done? The apex god will rise through your arrogance." But no one listened. The chamber was drowned in violence, and then, in the middle of the chaos, the chamber lights flickered. The scanners across the hall activated on their own. They spoke with one voice, ancient and heavy. "Warning, resonance expanding, resonance expanding." Everyone froze, even the warlords. They turned to the screens as a new message burned into the air. Humanity has endured. Humanity carries the mark. Humanity is chosen. The delegates collapsed in terror. The warlords shouted in denial, but the words could not be silenced. They echoed across the galaxy, broadcasted to every system, every ship, every world. The truth was no longer secret. In the chaos, the human was brought into the chamber. He walked through the broken doors, past the fallen soldiers, past the burning banners. Every eye turned to him, every voice silenced. The mark O in his arm glowed steadily. He raised his hand and the room trembled into silence. "They fight over me, they fear me, they worship me," he said. "But none of you understand the apex god is not gone. It watches still, it whispers still, it waits." The chamber filled with gasps. He continued, his voice heavy. "You think you can use me as a weapon. You think you can kill me and end this, but you are wrong. I am only a shadow of what is coming." The mark pulsed once, and everyone felt it. The crushing weight of something vast pressing against their minds. For a moment the chamber was silent as the grave, and then the human spoke the words that froze every heart. The apex god is not memory, it is awakening, and you have no time left. The chamber stood in ruins, smoke curled along the ceiling, broken banners burned at the edges, delegates sat slumped against shattered walls, their eyes wide with terror. The warlords who had betrayed the council lay silent, their armies broken by the unseen force. And at the center the human stood, calm, steady, the mark on his arm glowing like a living star. Then, without command, every scanner in the chamber activated. Their voices rose together in perfect unison. Humanity has endured. Humanity carries the mark. Humanity will rise. The words echoed not only in the chamber, but across the galaxy. On distant colonies, miners dropped their tools and fell to their knees. On warships, hardened soldiers froze in fear as the scanners repeated the same prophecy. In temples, priests wept as their gods were silenced by the machine's voice. And on 1,000 worlds, the people whispered one word: humanity. The council delegates trembled. Some clutched their heads, crying that it was blasphemy. Others begged the human to speak, to explain, but he stood in silence for a long moment, his eyes heavy with the weight of a truth he wished he could deny. Finally, he raised his voice. You think this is about me, but it is not. This is about all of us, about what is coming. The mark pulse. And as he spoke, filling the chamber with a faint light, you see me as chosen or cursed, but the truth is simpler. I endured what none of you could, and that endurance carries a message. The speaker of light flickered, its glow unstable. What message? It whispered. The human's voice grew darker. That the apex god is not gone, it is watching. It has always been watching, and through me, it knows you are not ready. The chamber fell into silence again. Every delegate felt it, that crushing weight of something vast beyond comprehension. It was not the human they feared anymore. It was the presence behind him, the shadow that had touched him and marked him. Suddenly, the scanners flared brighter, their voices booming like thunder. Resonance expanding, countdown initiated. The words sent panic through the chamber. Delegates screamed, soldiers raised weapons, alarms blared across the capital. But no attack came, no fire, no storm, only the steady pulse of the human's mark. He lifted his arm, showing it to all. You cannot fight what is coming, he said. You cannot hide from it. The apex does not need armies, it does not need ships, it only needs patience, and patience it has. The speaker cried out, then what are we to do? What hope do we have? The human's eyes softened, just for a moment. Endurance, he said. The same gift given to me, you must endure, or you will fall. But even as he spoke, many did not believe. Some saw him as savior, some as doom. Some already plotted to follow him, while others swore to hunt him. The galaxy was divided, but all agreed on one truth. The human had changed everything. As he turned to leave the chamber, the scanner spoke one final time, louder than ever before. Humanity has endured. Humanity is chosen. Humanity will rise. The words rolled across the stars like fire. Every fleet, every colony, ever. Hidden world heard them. And in that moment, the galaxy knew its age had ended. A new age had begun. An age where humanity was no longer small, no longer fragile, no longer ignored. The human walked through the broken doors, the mark glowing with steady light. The soldiers who tried to block his path dropped their weapons and stepped aside. None dared stop him. None dared touch him. He walked calmly into the open air, where the night sky burned with 1,000 stars. The whispers in his mind were no longer distant. They were clear, steady, endless. You are endurance. You are shadow. You are the bridge, the voice said. And though he did not understand, he felt the truth. This was only the beginning. The galaxy watched in silence as the human disappeared into the stars. Some saw hope, some saw terror, but all knew the same truth. The apex god had never left, and through the human, it was watching them all.